So Pastor Mark wanted me to address a question. We all know that there's a war. And the truth is, the war on ISIS is also a mistake. It's not a war on ISIS. ISIS is just one organization. There's a lot of terrorist organizations. There's ISIS, there's Hamas, there's Hezbollah, there's the entire regime of Iran, which is also a terrorist organization. In the same way that ISIS is now functioning as a state, it's printing its own money, it's got oil reserves. Iran is the same thing. It's a terrorist organization that is now functioning as a state called Iran. And America has become the largest sponsor of terror around the world today by giving Iran billions of dollars. It's like the world has been flipped upside down. The stage is being set for Israel to stand alone. And it's interesting that when you see, the whole world calls ISIS, ISIS, except for one guy. There's one guy that will call it ISIL constantly. Everyone calls it ISIS, 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 ISIS. And every time President Obama speaks, he calls it ISIL. And I was like wondering, well, what is that about? I mean, he's not stupid, and he's doing it deliberately and consistently, and every time he speaks, he talks about ISIL. And so we did a radio program on the network just a couple of weeks ago, and that's what Pastor Mark wanted me to talk about. So what is ISIL about? So ISIS is the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. That's what ISIS stands for, ISIS. ISIL stands for the Islamic State of the Levant. What's the Levant? It's interesting. It's much bigger of an area that goes back to the Arabia times, where Muhammad conquered a huge portion of land back in the heyday, where they would go, like ISIS is doing today, rape, pillage, kill, enslave, and rule. And that's, ISIS is trying to relive those glory days. But it's called the Levant, which is a much bigger area. Now, some say, it's like, Iraq and Syria, we're like, come on, guys, we want much more than that. I mean, maybe is that what's happening? There's like sort of like a subconscious encouragement to much larger realities? Maybe. I don't think so. Maybe. I think something much more sinister is happening. Who does that land belong to? Who does the land of Israel belong to? It belongs to God. Who did God give the land of Israel to? To the people of Israel. The land of Israel to the people of Israel. It's so natural. Because that's the truth. That's history. That's the Bible. It's just the truth, really. Once we start talking about the narrative being the Levant, it's like, oh, that's the Arabian land that Muhammad once possessed. And really, the Jews don't really belong there because that's the Levant. That's like a part of Arabia. What are the Jews even doing there? So who does that land now belong to if it's called the Levant? It's like, Levant, what is that word? I've never even heard that word until recently. So the question now boils down to, who is to inherit Abraham? Because Abraham was promised a covenant. And Abraham's covenant had nothing to do with the Torah, nothing to do with the prophets, nothing to do with the holidays, nothing. The covenant given to Abraham is in chapter 17. Verse 7. I will ratify my covenant between me and you and between your offspring after you throughout their generations as an everlasting covenant, to be a God to you and your offspring after you. Verse 8. How does he ratify the covenant? And I will give to you and your offspring after you the land of your sojourns, the whole land of Canaan, as an everlasting possession, and I shall be a God to them. The base covenant with Abraham, the base covenant with Israel was the land of Israel. And now all forces of humanity are coming to take the land away. Boycott Judea and Samaria. Call it the Levant. Do whatever you can to undermine our claim to our land. What they're attacking isn't just us. They're attacking the base covenant we have with God. The stage is being set now for David against Goliath. There's only 6 million Jews in the Middle East right now. There's well over 1 billion Muslims. The European Union is now boycotting us. This administration has never been this bad between our two countries, ever. And that has been a blessing in disguise. Israel was born in 1948. In 1967, on Jerusalem Day, we had our bar mitzvah. Right now, we're about 21. And for the last who knows how long, we always sort of turn towards Washington for our salvation. Went to dad for our salary. For not a salary, what's it called? An allowance. And all of a sudden now, for better or for worse, Dad's sort of kicking us out of the house. And for the first time, Israel's becoming a young man, 21. We're standing alone now. And that's been a big blessing for us. We're meant to dwell alone. We're meant to be alone. It's meant to be the whole world. All of those that are attracted to evil, all of those that are attracted to those forces, let them all come against Israel. Because Israel doesn't fight Israel's battles. God fights Israel's battles. So I want to bless you all. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. And if you sent me that email, we'll be in touch forever. Thank you.